Hi, welcome to another episode of Chatter About the Chatter. Cuddycudworth, as always, your host of this podcast, the proud founder and owner of Monkey Mind Relaxation, where the art of monkey mind relaxation is not to let your monkey mind control you and to learn how to beat life with resilience and just move forward with a smile and grace that we all have. And today's guest, I am so excited to have on, and I genuinely am. Am I allowed to say, am I a fanboy? Would that be what I am?
Yeah, you can be that. Yeah, you can be that.
All right. So I'm a fanboy. Now, for any of our listeners, I started doing strongman training about 6 months ago. So obviously I started looking for other people doing strongman training, and then Strong Woman popped up and I'm like, oh, I don't really know if that's going to be my thing. And Gemma popped up and I'm like, all right, Gemma, I'm going to follow you, see what you do. Now, before I do introduce you, there is some days, Gemma, that I see you do some training, I'm like, do you know what? That bitch is actually squatting more than I do. I can't believe it. She's 5'1" and she's squatting more than I do. I'm gutted. You make me feel so insecure, but in a fun way, Gemma, right?
Oh,
in a fun way.
I love that.
So, Gemma, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you very much. Really good.
Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, because it was purely just, is the term the kids are using these days, I scooted into your DMs. Is that the word?
You did, this is true.
It makes me feel awkward every time I scoot into people's DMs, but I've been told, because I'm a 44-year-old guy, so I'm like, this is what you got to do these days. You've got to scoot into people's DMs. So thank you very much for doing the podcast, Gemma.
You're most welcome.
Now, the reason I wanted to get you into the podcast is because it is called the Chatter About the Chatter. It's to help people and give people as much information they need to know about those internal conversations that can drive us insane. They give us depression, they give us anxiety. And I always listen to, I read your posts, and I don't read many posts because you're just looking at the pictures, you're like, swipe.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, she's got a voice. And I've kind of constructed that voice when you're talking in your messages, and I'm like, she's got the chatter going on, but she knows how to handle it. I'm getting on the show. So thank you so much. Gemma, introduce yourself. Tell us everything we need to know about you in 3 minutes. Go.
Oh, wow. So my name is Gemma Ferguson. I am 36 and I'm from a place called Burgesshill, which is just outside of Brighton in West Sussex. I'm ex-military, so I was in the Royal Corps of Signals for 10 years. I've served all over, started off in Germany, then went to Northern Ireland, ended up in Bulford in Wiltshire, and I've done all my operational tours in between. So I've done Canada, Iraq, Afghanistan, where else have I been? Oh, I've been everywhere, all over the place. I left the military in 2012. It was a bit of a hasty exit for me. I was at the time suffering dreadfully with my mental health. I was drinking an awful lot. I was getting into trouble on barracks. Unbeknown to me, I was suffering with PTSD, but I wasn't fully aware of the extent of it until I left, and I didn't have that support system anymore. I moved to London and I got a job working nights for an insurance company. It was quite a big company that did sort of bespoke insurance policies for high risk bankers and clients. So we had like an ops room and we would watch them in the ops room. It was for things like kidnapping, ransom, extortion, political violence, that sort of thing. So it was quite full on. And I struggled to fit in socially, and I had no common ground with people. So I tried my hardest to, I guess, like remodel myself to try and fit in with these people. Yeah. So there was a lot going out, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, which just wasn't really me. I did get involved in drugs, and I had quite a bad habit with cocaine. Yeah. And it all kind of came to a bit of an abrupt end in the back end of 2015. I was diagnosed in 2012 with PTSD. Yep. I knew I had mental health issues, but I kind of brushed it under the carpet. I was like, no, that's not me. You know, I'm a big burly soldier. I can just get through this. And the drugs and the alcohol numbed it, obviously. But I got into serious debt. I lost my flat. I lost my job, and I had to move back to Sussex with my parents. At which point my mum was like, you just got to sort yourself out. You know, you are in dire straits here, Gemma. You're having nightmares. There was aggression. I would lash out. I I was self-sabotaging myself. I piled on the weight. Like, you know, I was comfort eating, I was binging and then making myself sick, and I was just in not a very good place. Eventually, I got in touch with an organisation called PTSD Resolution, who sent out a counsellor to come and have some chats with me, which was okay to start off with, but it was very tiring. And then I quickly realised that it wasn't the right treatment for me, and it kind of put me off that. So I never had any more sort of counselling going forwards. What I did realise though was that I had a dog, little Murphy, who was my Springer Spaniel, and I did realise that, you know, I that when I was going out and going for these walks with him, and I was coming back, I was feeling good. So I then matched it up. Actually, exercise is obviously good for me, and I used to enjoy exercise in the military. So I was like, right, okay, let's get back to a gym. Let's get yourself fit and healthy, lose a bit of weight, and then hopefully that will make you better. And you know, it really did. And so I got into the gym, and it was at that point I was scouted by a PT in the gym who said, you're pretty strong for a girl, while I was deadlifting. And he said, there's a competition in Worthing that's happening in a few months. It was Worthing's Strongest Woman. And he was like, why don't you do it? And initially I was like, oh my God, no, I'm not doing that. There's going to be loads of like massive women and I'm not going to fit in. And no, that's not for me. And then after I thought about it, I thought, hang on a minute. Like, you could really push yourself out your comfort zone here and go and do something big. So just do it, go and do it. So I did. And I think that was like the military side of me. I was like, come on now, you know, like, man up, let's go do this. So I signed up for the competition, having not touched a strongman implement. And I turned up on Worthing Seafront on the day, and there was these monster dumbbells and a deadlift tire thing, and I had no idea. And the girls that were there were really supportive, and I couldn't believe that these girls that I was competing against were like cheering me on in the arena to pick these weights up. They didn't mind that potentially I could beat them. Right. It was such an empowering thing to have other women, you know, I'd never really had that kind of relationship with women before, but to have other women really pushing me on. And I came second, and I just fell in love with the sport. I was like, where can I go? How can I learn this? You know, where can I progress? And I found out about all of the qualification paths, that you can do your regionals, then you can go on to do the England Strongest Woman finals, then Britain's Strongest Woman, there was Europe's Strongest Woman, there was World's Strongest Woman. I was like, take me all the way, I'm doing all of it. So I started off competing as an open lady, so I was over 100 kilos at the time, and I was like, this is not going to work for me. I'm too small. The weights are too big. It's just not doable. So I was like, right, I'm going to cut down to the middleweight category, which was under 82. And being typical Gemma, I skipped all the regionals, and I threw myself straight in at the deep end to do a qualifier for World's Strongest Woman. And I qualified. I came top 20, and I went away to North Carolina, and I competed at World's Strongest Woman in 2018. Brilliant. Terribly, got absolutely whooped. And I fell on my arse tremendously. But that gave me the fire then I learned so much. I learned, like, I needed a coach. I needed to learn about about recovery. I needed to learn more about the implements and the basics. So I got a coach when I got back, and I did a whole year of like off-season training with him. The following year I went on to win England's Strongest Woman, and I placed third at Britain's Strongest Woman, and I qualified again for World's Strongest Woman and the Arnold's, and it's kind of just taken off from there really. So brilliant. That's where we're at. So Arnold's next year, taking a bit of a step back now for a minute to have some more off-season time. Yeah. And yeah, that's pretty much where I am.
That's a phenomenal story. That was longer than 3 minutes, if you don't mind my saying.
Sorry.
Well, that's amazing. Now we're going to chunk that down a little bit. We're going to go back to parts of that story so we can really deep dive what a lot of those things that you've been saying, how it's shown up in your life. Because I know we started talking before we did this little cheeky little podcast. Yeah. And I know that you are very much not a fan of labels and things like that, and how people we were talking about, some people do use labels of, I can't do this because I have this. Yeah. So PDST, how did you find out you had PDST? What was it for you, for our listeners and things like that, so hopefully it can resonate with them? And how does it manifest with you now?
So I initially started off with, there was a lot of hypersensitivity. There was a lot of nightmares. There was a lot of real bad depression. I mean, really bad. Like I had a couple of, luckily I never got to the point where I ever wanted to take, or ever got to the point where I was going to take my own life.
Yeah.
But I definitely had the thoughts were there. They were creeping in.
Yeah.
More and more and more. You know, no one's going to miss me if I'm gone.
Yeah.
How can I do it? I was researching it. I've looked online. You know, I'd looked at ways of, you know, hanging myself, topping myself. I'd looked at things, and it panicked me. It scared me that I was getting to that point where I was looking for those things. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of anger. And I mean like violent. So I'd lashed out on my parents. I've, you know, pushed my mum. I've hit my brother. You know, I'm ashamed to say that it happened, but it did happen. And I just had no control over myself. Nothing, no control whatsoever. And looking back now, it's frightening being in that position. But you're in this bubble, and you just cannot see out. It doesn't matter how much people say to you, I'm here for you, you're going to get through this, it will get better. You cannot see. It's like tunnel vision. Nothing else outside of that matters to you apart from what you're going through. You don't care about anybody else. You become very selfish. It was just all about me. And gosh, what I put my parents through.
So now I think you've touched on a great point, and it's that you become a vacuum, right? Of that just the whole world's against me. It's that woe is me. It's just me. Everything's wrong.
Yeah.
Kind of screw everyone else because I want people to feel my pain. That's the kind of position we're in, right?
Yeah.
Been there, so totally understand that. I think a lot of people don't realize now. I think you mentioned a really valuable point there, that when people are around there, or it'll pass, or you don't. If I'm here for you, if you want, things like that. Why is it when you're in those depths, you're like, fuck off to everyone? Why?
Because I felt like people didn't understand what I was going through. I felt like people couldn't relate to me, and a lot of these people weren't ex-military or military. And a lot of my military friends, and I think this has got a lot better now. People have got a better understanding of what PTSD is, and my PTSD is by no means as bad as some guys out there. You know, some are absolutely terrible, and I just used to get really angry with people. I used to think, like, you know, you haven't been where I've been. You've not been in a war zone, you know. And people saying, oh, it can't be that bad because I hadn't been blown up, I hadn't been shot at, I hadn't lost any limbs, there was no physical scars. So a lot of the time as well, I felt like people didn't truly believe that I had something going on inside.
Believe your pain, yeah.
And a lot of my PTSD was guilt. So I don't mind discussing it. So the backstory is, like, I was part of a prisoner processing facility in Iraq, and we were working with a lot of, I mean, these were bad guys. Some of them were bad guys, some of them weren't bad guys, but there was a lot of stuff that we saw, witnessed, and for me, a lot of guilt. Like, I'm a human being at the end of the day, and I just, even though I was in the military and that was a job that I chose, it pains me, it hurts me still to know that we did that to another human being. And I just can't get away from that.
Yep.
You know, it's just, I know that that's war and that's what it's like, but I guess I just said the type of person I am.
Yeah.
I just can't, and I'm still the same now. I would never do to somebody else what I wouldn't want done to me. And that's the thing that I'll stick by. Yeah, you know, it's just, those are just my morals. But, you know, it's things were done for a reason, but the brutality of it, it's just not nice.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being honest and sharing.
It's all right.
No, it's a huge thing. It's a massive thing because people don't understand.
I think a lot of people think, when they think of PTSD, they do think that, you know, it only comes as a result of people being blown up, or, you know, I've seen kids injured. I've seen local nationals that didn't do anything wrong getting blown up and dying as a result. You know, that those still have an effect on you. Those things still have an effect on you.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't necessarily, anybody that's suffering with PTSD, I always say this to people, doesn't matter, you don't have to be blown up, you don't have to be shot, you don't have to be maimed in any way.
Yeah.
Those mental injuries, that's a head injury.
Yeah.
And that is still an injury.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So you've had depression, obviously. You've talked about that. You've gone down the dark hole, which I've stood there on the top of the precipice of, and then it's absolutely horrible when you stood there looking up.
Yeah.
Just no one to put a hand out.
It is.
Understand.
Yeah.
So you are where you are now, focused.
Yeah.
Mentally healthier, still with some challenges, as we all always talk about, and things like that. Now, you don't like the label of PDST, do you?
I don't like the label now. I don't like using it as an excuse. I don't feel like, don't get me wrong, it's a horrible thing to have, but it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse for anything. That you can work around things. You have to choose to want to manage it. And you have to want to choose to move forwards, but it doesn't have to stop you doing anything.
So I think that's a phenomenal quality to have, and certainly a great mindset. And mindset's a massive thing, and it's a place I come from when I'm working with my clients on things that we're talking about and stuff like that. So I completely understand that. And mindset it's a fancy word, isn't it? It's a fancy word because it doesn't come from therapy. It comes from how we can set our mind for things, and so many things moving forward, getting people moving forward.
Yeah.
So when you have friends who say, oh, I have depression, or I have this and I have that, and they create these stories of, well, I can't do anything. How does that bother you?
Oh, it really does frustrate me sometimes, and sometimes I really have to say, no, Gemma, don't say anything, because you might say the wrong thing. But sometimes I will reach out and I'll say to them, look, do you want to have a chat? Let's have a chat. Let's talk about why you think you're depressed. And often, a lot of the time, I can turn them around and I can say, that you're just down. You're just having some low moments. Maybe there's a bit of stress going on, but don't put a label on it like that if you're not entirely sure if that's what it is. And a lot of the time, people saying, I can't do it because I'm depressed. You're placing obstacles in front of yourself. You're placing those obstacles in front of yourself, and you're just using that label as an excuse, really, to stop you from doing what you want to do.
Right.
Which may sound like really flipping brutal, but you are. Because if you truly want to do something, regardless of where you are in your mental state, you'll do it. But you've got to want to do it.
You have to want to do it. You do.
Yeah.
You do. And I'm smiling because I can see that's a very strong passion from you. I can.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody was to say that to you when you were down the hole, how would you have reacted?
I would have listened and I would have taken it on board, and potentially if it was depression that this person was suffering with, I can understand, and I would treat that completely differently. But when I know that it's not, just from you can just tell when you've been depressed. You can when you've been in that position, when someone's just attention seeking. I didn't plaster it all over social media when I was depressed. That was my stuff. And I think a lot of the time, like I said to you, it's over glamorized. People will, oh, woe me, I'm suffering with depression, and I know, and my life is so bad, and I can't do this and that, and they plaster it all over social media and whatever for attention.
I can't disagree. I can't.
I'll use a lot of these, celebrities that have ended up taking their own lives. Right, use these as an example. Caroline Flack as an example. Right, she didn't plaster all over social media how she was depressed, how she was suffering from anxiety. She didn't tell anybody. And then it come to the end where she ended up taking her own life. If you're that deep into a depression, you don't tell people about it. And I'd say 9 out of 10 times you just put a brave face on and just try and get on with it and deny that anything is wrong.
I've often talked about this a lot of times, because I think I would agree with what you're saying, because it is hard, and that's when sometimes a lot of people say, well, you don't have any empathy. I'm like, no, we have empathy because we understand what it's like to be there. I always remember when in my darkest times, it was always, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. That to me now is the code word for, do you want to chat?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is how it should. I'm fine. No, I don't
Yeah.
need any help. I'm fine.
I used to get really
More of a
annoyed.
warning sign. What's that?
I used to get really, really. I think that used to anger me more when people used to say to me, "Is everything all right? You okay? You're fine. You're all right." It used to just make me more angry.
Was that now? I think that's really good to talk about, because that not because people could see you weren't fine.
Yeah, and I think I just felt like people were interfering.
Because
like, I was so like, I can sort this on my own. I don't need anybody, kind of thing.
And is that, you see, and I would. I'm not going to say I'm going to challenge that, but is that the best way forward?
Oh no, absolutely not. And I needed the help, but I was so like I said, I didn't think anybody understood.
Yeah.
So I was just like, just leave me alone. I can just do this on my own. And now, you obviously you can't, because you just get deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And you just become so like isolated, and yeah.
Fantastic. I love that. Brilliant. And again, I'm going to say thank you once again for sharing, Gemma, because that's fantastic. And you are in a different, being a strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a different kind of genre of fitness, really, because that's not. And in a world where we're trying to create sentences that don't offend, a strong woman is not a typical route for ladies to take, is it?
No, it's not. No. And
I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think if you go back some time, when I very first started sort of training, it was all about get as skinny as I possibly could get, lose weight, because, trying to make my physique, I don't know, like all the ladies that you see on Instagram and in magazines and stuff. And then I realised that actually my body's not designed for that. It's not, I'm never going to be a size 8. It's just not going to happen. And allow my body to do what it's meant to do. And strength sports are just so empowering. And actually your body changes anyway. So aesthetically, I've changed massively. Yeah. My body shape has changed without me even having to try. Yeah. My fitness is a lot better than it was when I was in the army.
Wow.
My strength is a lot better than it was when I was in the military. Yeah, everything's changed. So it's definitely a different style of training. But a lot of women are sort of put off by strength sports because they think they're going to get bulky very quick.
Yes. Which
is not the case. And a lot of these girls that you do see, and we'll touch on this now because it's something that people don't really touch on, but a lot of these girls that you see that are very muscular, it's very, very hard for a woman to put muscle on.
Right.
It happens, but it's a very slow process. These big girls that you see, be under no illusions, they use performance-enhancing drugs.
Right. Bold statement there, Gemma. Bold statement.
I know, because I'm deep in the sport. So
right, okay.
So a lot of girls do use them. So, and that's another thing is like I'd say to women, don't be afraid to get into sports and think that you're going to turn into this big burly strong woman, because that's not the case. It's a very feminine sport. There's lots of girls that do, I have my nails done, I have my eyelashes done, I can't get my lips done. You don't have to be a big butch woman.
You post some pictures regarding like women's issues and things like that. Of keeping it real on the days that you're bloated and things like that. And I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think because now I'm a coach, so I've been a PT since 2013. So I've never really used it until a couple of years ago, and I started like coaching friends and stuff. I mainly did it for just for something to do and to teach myself more about fitness. I've always really been into fitness, and it was more for educating myself. But I launched my business during lockdown. And I coach online. I do one-to-ones as well, but I'm very interested in not just in how the female body works, but just our bodies in general. But for training females, you need to know everything. You need to really be in touch with your cycle. You need to understand your body. So I like to talk about it a lot because it makes a difference for girls within training to understand your body and your menstrual cycles and all the rest of it that goes with it. There's lots and what happens in particular times within the cycle and how that'll affect your training. So, and your mindset, because I find there's certain periods within the month where my anxiety is worse because of post PMS. There we go.
That's
I'll get my words out. Too many teeth in my mouth.
There was a lot of where we've used a lot of abbreviations and acronyms. So that was PMS. That's fine. So the chatter. When you were down in the hole, what was the chatter like? What was that conversation like?
Self-sabotage mainly. So I'm not good enough. People don't like you. You're never going to fit in. You're never going to succeed. There was a lot of stuff with my brother, believe it or not. So I'm very close to my brother. There's only 17 months between me and my brother. My brother lives in America, and my brother, and excuse this term, is one of those people that could fall in shit and come out smelling of roses. He is the most jammy git I've ever met in my life, right? And he left the military a year before me. And seeing him like go to America and succeed and get this amazing job and this big house, and there was so much jealousy over him, and I compared myself to him because I was like, how is he able to leave the military having done the same stuff I've done and just cruise along, nothing's wrong, and this is all happening to me? Why? And I was so angry with him for a period of time because I was just like, why is this happening to me and not to you? So I did lash out at him quite a lot.
So that question you used to ask,
yeah,
this is what, when I'm working with clients, what's your primary question? It's a phenomenal thing, because when you ask a question, you create an answer.
Yeah.
What creates a meaning that will give you the anxiety, the depression, all those kind of things. So when you're saying that question, why him and not me, what was your answer?
I didn't have an answer. And that was even more frustrating. There was no reason for it. And the thing is with PTSD as well is that it can present itself at any time. So you could leave the military for 10 years and be perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden something might happen in your life that brings it all up to the surface. I just think I'm a very emotional person anyway. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I've always struggled with my emotions. I've always struggled with understanding them. And I think potentially maybe I could have always had some underlying mental health issues. Definitely there's a lot comes from my childhood. So it's not just, I think a combination of things have probably made it all so bad. But I went through a very traumatic divorce with my parents, losing grandparents, losing a dog. It kind of all happened in my child's mind. This all happened on a very short time frame. Being an adult now and being able to look back, I can see that actually it wasn't. It was just the fact that I hadn't dealt with those things. And I think being a very emotional person, I just hadn't dealt with it. And I've dealt with a lot of things as I've got older with my parents over that. So those have been, boxed up and put away. So that's helped a lot of stuff. But I just think my PTSD, I do think it's down to the type of person you are, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. My brother's a very resilient guy. He manages his stress very well. He's got a high-end job now. He's got 2 kids, and he manages things really well. Really well.
Does he manage his emotions? Would you say he's emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, he's aware of him. He's very aware of himself. Like he does have a temper, but I think that's just like a family trait. We all have a temper, but he's very good at containing it and taking himself away from the situation. Whereas me, I can be a very confrontational person. So if I lose my temper, there is no off switch for me. I can't, and then I make myself very upset, and I get very emotional, very teary if I lose my temper. So that's one thing now that I've learned I need to suppress. So if I find myself getting angry, I cap it straight away, because getting angry for me is like you flick a switch. That's it. I can be like 2 or 3 days in bed if I get angry.
Right.
It just wipes me out.
Yeah.
I just get so emotionally. I just can't switch off from it.
Yeah.
So I don't tend to. I've got to that point now where I don't lash out or anything anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm able to control it a lot better.
Yeah.
I just get very I get angry and all shaky and emotional and teary, and then I just can't. I can't deal with it. I can't. So I have to go in. And this has happened quite. It hasn't happened actually for a few months. Like I'd say, a good sort of like 12, 13 months. Right. During the lockdowns, I had quite a few periods where when I get angry, I can't talk about how I'm feeling. Right. So rather than talking to family and friends, I just shut myself away. So I just literally go no comms with anybody, which is, I know, is a terrible thing to do, but I'm so scared. I'm so scared of lashing out at somebody verbally because I can't understand what's going on in with myself, that I just find the easiest thing to do is just shut off.
Right. Well, everyone's got different coping strategies.
I know.
I'm not going to agree or disagree with you. So
I know it's the wrong thing. I know it's the wrong thing to do, and I know in hindsight I probably should learn how to deal with that rather than having to shut myself away. But I'm just so scared of hurting people by my verbal outbursts that I will just shut myself away.
So the monkey mind relaxation when I'm, because I actually teach meditation as well. I teach meditation. We do live meditation every Monday.
Right.
Like that. And the premise of monkey mind relaxation is to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it. And I've worked with people with PTSD as well.
Oh, okay.
You have to acknowledge the conversation. That's the first thing. If you don't acknowledge it, if you keep trying to suppress it, it's like a volcano.
Well, no, this is it, and I know that. But I think I just try not to put myself in those sort of situations. I won't put myself in anything that's going to make me angry, or I'm a pretty chilled bean. I will, I keep myself in my little bubble. I'm very focused on my business, my training, my strongwoman. I have a very small circle of friends, and that is just peace.
Perfect. So let's talk about the habits, because you've built yourself up a pretty mean habit structure, rules for yourself just to get through the day. That's how you manage your anxiety. True or false?
True. Yeah.
True. Perfect. So talk about some of your habits.
So I am an early riser. I like to get up nice and early in the morning. So I'm usually up between sort of like 5:30 and 6. Yep. And I do cardio in the morning. So not every morning. Sometimes I go for just a long walk with the dogs, but generally I'm up. I'll do faster cardio on a spin bike in the morning, and then I take the dogs for a walk. And then it's breakfast and get a shower, get sorted. Then I'm in my office and I'll do my morning check-ins with whatever clients I've got on that day. So it's usually about an hour and a half of morning check-ins. Then it's coffee time. And then I usually head to the gym for my one-to-one clients or my classes. Then I train, so I make sure that I've got like 2.5 hours every day blocked out for my training. And I do like my mobility. I make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind. So if if it means having to sit in the car and take 5 minutes before going to the gym or going back into the gym to the train, then I'll do that, because I've got to be calm, otherwise I will have the most horrendous training session. So I have to make sure that is done. Once training's done, it's home, walk the dogs again, dinner, and then usually back to the gym for more classes, or in the office on the laptop doing more check-ins or program writing. And then I'm a nanny, so I'm literally in bed for like 9-10 o'clock.
Right. Okay. Yes. There's so much niceness about, that's not even a word, but there's something really blissful about going to bed at 9 o'clock. Without any shame or guilt. Yeah. Like, no, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock. I don't care about anybody else. If I'm tired, I'm going. I've got to have a good solid sleep, because that's another thing that affects me massively. Is if my sleep pattern is interrupted, that throws me off. Right. Okay. And that stir up the anxiety even more.
Yeah, really bad. So if I have a terrible night's sleep, I think I told you, I have a scale in the morning. Yeah. So I scale myself between 1 and 10. So some mornings I can wake up and I'll be like, I know instantly as soon as I've woken up if I'm going to be like, I'm a 5, I'm good, get out of bed, off we go. Or it might be, I've got that feeling, I'm an 8 today. I need to just, and I don't do anything specifically. I have a few like breathing things that I do. Yeah. It's self-taught, so I don't even know if I'm doing it right, but it works for me. And it's literally just, I take 2 or 3 minutes to just take some really deep breaths, and I can feel myself sort of like melting back into the bed, and I feel my heart rate come down, and then I just get up and I go.
Nice. Good.
And that works for me. So
whatever works for you, Gemma. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have just been, and I know we just touched on this again, but this is genuinely why I did follow you on Instagram and stuff like that. But you've just got invited to, and where did you come in the UK's Strongest Woman?
So UK's, which is absolutely brutal, by the way. I came, where did I come? 11th out of 16 girls.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was 11th. Yeah, 11th out of 16 girls.
Brilliant. And was that televised anywhere? Because I was.
So it was on live, but it has been televised. I think it's on like BBC Ireland and a Sky channel. We haven't really been given any details when it's going to be on.
Okay.
But it has been pre-recorded to go on. It was a really cool comp to do, but it was an open comp. So the girls, I mean, the tallest girl was like 6'2" or 6'3" and weighed like 130 kilos.
Right. So
and I'm only
open, that means anything.
Yeah, no, there's no restrictions on weight or height. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Brilliant.
But we're all doing the same weights. There's no different weights. It's the same weights for everybody. So as an example, like the tire was like 250 kilos. The keg run was like 89 kilos. And the deadlift, I think, was like 220.
And how many times did you get the 220 out?
None. I got it to just above my knees, and then that was it. It was on a chain with a crate at the bottom with bricks in it. There was no way I was going to get that. Like, yeah, that was just ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
250 kilos for the tire. That's I'm getting tire envy. I'm like, oh.
I got 4 flips of the tire.
That's pretty awesome. That is awesome.
I'll take that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You were crushing it. I know you were doing so well, and you have been entered into the Worlds next year. So you're taking a little bit of time out training because you had injury, right?
Yeah, so I've had a few injuries this year. I've had a calf tear, a little shoulder niggle, and my back's better, but I herniated a disc in my back last year at England's Strongest Woman.
And how'd you do that? I'm asking because I know something's coming for me, surely. I'm always asking to find out what do I need to do.
It was a deadlift, but the problem wasn't the deadlift. The problem was that I hadn't done any heavy training during lockdown, and then I'd gone and tried to be a bit of a superhero, and it was a 200 kilo 18-inch deadlift, and my core wasn't braced. I rushed it. There was no breathing. It was a silly mistake, really. Yeah, gutted because I lost my title of England's Strongest Woman. So, but I came third. So
brilliant.
Still a result.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Gemma.
You're welcome.
You've shared so much that's going to absolutely resonate with so many people, especially talking about PDST. I think that's a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
And I genuinely mean that. Thank you so much for doing the podcast.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you want to share words of wisdom with any of our listeners? And what is your genuine tip for getting through life?
Do you know, I've got one saying that I say to a lot of my clients, and they're probably going to listen to this and say, fuck, she says that all the time. But you are the captain of your own ship, and you choose which way it sails. And I will stick by that. You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. You really can. Nothing stops you.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for sharing. That is, there's so many good things in there. Especially talking about everything that you've just shared everything, Gemma. So thank you, because that the hardest part for a lot of people is sharing.
Yeah.
And you've done that. So thank you so much, Gemma.
I think I've got to that point now where I'm at peace with everything that's happened, and it's a very powerful moment when you get to that point.
Making peace with your past allows you to move forward.
It does, yeah.
I will. Do you know what? I will use a sailing analogy for you. As soon as you're a captain of your own ship, is once you release and forgive, it's like letting the anchor go that's holding you back.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And life naturally starts to gravitate towards you when that happens.
And that's genuinely, you've changed your story from why does this keep happening to me for life is happening for me.
For me, yeah. Yeah.
Preach, Gemma.
Brilliant.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Gemma. I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone, and then I'll have a chat with you after the podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
To everybody, thank you very much for tuning in for Chatter About the Chatter, the podcast available on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor. I will give everyone the links. I'm Cuddy Cudworth, the proud founder and CEO of Monkey Mind Relaxation. You don't have to live with those stresses, those anxieties, depression, and worries. We can get you moving forward. That's what we do at Monkey Mind Relaxation. Big love from Cuddy. Big love from
Gemma. See you later.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you on the next episode of Chatter About the Chatter. I've got a really cool one coming up soon as well.